You're listening to the Business and Life Conversations podcast with Angela Henderson, episode 67. Hey there, you're listening to the Business and Life Conversations podcast. My name is Angela Henderson, and on this show, we talk about improving your business, life, or both by having amazing and rich conversations with brilliant guests who will inspire you and who will give you tips and tricks to help you grow both in life and in business. Well, hey there, amazing humans. I hope you're having a brilliant day no matter where you are in the world, and welcome back to another episode of the Business and Life Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Angela, from Angela Henderson Consulting, where I am a business consultant helping women in business to develop the foundational framework and strategy they need to grow sustainable and profitable businesses. Now, if you're like me, trademarks are mostly a foreign language. I slow that down, a foreign language, because that's how I feel about trademarks. You know it exists, you may even know it's important, but you're not quite sure how the heck they work and why trademarks can be super important for your business. That's why in today's show, I'll be bringing on my own trademark lawyer, Lisa Wynn, to talk about all types of trademarks, the benefits of getting a trademark, the process for getting a trademark, the costs when you don't do trademarking, the costs for how to set up a trademark, and so much more. Trademarks have become super, super important to my business, and I want to make sure that you too are educated about trademarks and how they apply to your business and what you need to do in order to protect your business for now and for the future. This is an episode that you truly don't want to miss because it might just save your business in the long run. But before we jump into this episode, I just want to let you know that this episode is sponsored by my new on-demand business masterclass, the ultimate 4-step framework for creating a sustainable and profitable business. In my 60-minute jam-packed masterclass, you are going to learn my signature 4-step framework for creating a sustainable and profitable business without sacrificing time with your kids, without the overwhelm, or without wasting time on any more money. The 4 big mistakes that everyone in business makes and why they're keeping you from growing a sustainable and profitable business, what is working for your business now, and why most of what you're being taught about growing a business is outdated and wrong. To sign up for my on-demand business masterclass, the ultimate 4-step framework, you can simply head to bit.ly/masterclass with Angela Henderson, and we'll also have the link in the show notes. Now buckle in and get ready for this amazing episode about trademarks with Lisa Wynn. Welcome to the show, Lisa.
Hi, Angela. Thank you so much for having me.
No, thank you for being here. It's always wonderful to have a guest on that is super knowledgeable. And all my guests are super knowledgeable, but what I mean by that is I think there's an element of trademarks that people start to lose their shit over, like they don't really know. So, or they start to assume things. And I want to kind of debunk a few myths, I guess you could say, about trademarks today. And I want the audience to start to get comfortable with it. So I guess that's why I know you're super knowledgeable in this. And I'm really thankful to have you on board today for this.
Excellent. Thank you.
Now, we first met I was trying to think about it. It was probably about 12 months, I think, maybe a little over 12 months. And I was very fortunate to be introduced to you when I was creating my own signature program, Profit Pillars with Angela Henderson. And you assisted me with my own trademarking. And to be honest, when my copywriter at the time said to me, like, Ange, you're going to need to get this trademarked. You're going to need to have a separate logo for your program. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I was like, it's Angela Henderson Consulting. They're like, no, that's your business. But you need a logo that accompanies the program. And then you probably need to get that trademark. But I was like, why would I get that trademark? No one's going to copy me. They're like, that's what you think. And so then, like I said, I was really opened. My eyes were open, I guess you could say, to the world of trademarks, because I never in a million years would have assumed that my coaching program would need to be trademarked. And that's, where you came in. So, and you kind of, flipped me on my head a little bit going, actually, Ange, this is what we can do and this is what we can't do. So as I said, I'm excited to have you here today. But one of the things we do, at least before we jump into the nitty-gritty of trademarks, is I like to ask each one of my guests a little question so that people can start to get to know you. And I know you were just doing some family holiday time with your family during the school holidays. Yes. So my question to you, are you a beach person or a pool person?
Oh, definitely a pool person, without
definitely
doubt.
The pool?
Yes.
Yeah.
Who needs the sand?
Like, seriously. Yeah. I'm like, is it? And I always feel bad because, like we were just in Vietnam, and there's like this, what do they call them? Infinity pools that overlook the beach. And I'm like, well, I'm kind of getting both Like, I'm in the niceness of this. Drinks are getting delivered, right? And I don't, like you said, the sand. Who the hell needs the sand, Lise?
Absolutely. Plus, I'm a country girl, so I don't live near the beach, which means when I go to the beach, I, get dunked by the waves. I'm just not knowledgeable about, I don't know how to swim in the ocean properly without, causing an injury. So, yeah.
Or like needing to be rescued, any one of those.
Exactly.
Like, I'm like the same. I'm like, if a rip were to take me, I would just float, because I'm always like, I wouldn't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm looking for. And I do have a little bit of paranoia, like when I'm with the kids at the beach. Like, again, get me in a pool and I'm a pretty strong swimmer, but I definitely know my weakness is get me in that ocean and I start to kind of freak a little bit.
Yes.
And like I said, I'm very like, oh, Chloe, Finney, you're too far away. They're like, Mom, we're knee deep. I'm like, you can still get torn away, So I'm a little bit of the crazy mom also, which isn't helpful, when I'm in the water with the kids. But yeah, so cool. So that's good. So you and I are pool people. I don't mind, drinks getting delivered either, So I'm all about the pool too also. So now, can you tell the listeners out there, because like I said, the majority of people who are listening don't know all of my guests, and so this is why I kind of do this every episode, because I think it's important that people get to know you, that clearly you like pools, but also you're a lawyer. So tell us a little bit about your current business journey and what that looks like.
So I'm a trademark attorney, so that means that I specialise in trademark law, and that's all I do. And it took me a while to get to this stage in my business journey, really. I was a lawyer for the government for a long, long time, doing a different area of law. I was doing criminal law. And when I had my third boy, I got 3 boys. When I had my third one, I started an online toy store when I had him. And basically that was really just because I dreamt of being in business, my whole life. And I had no idea what to do. So I had 3 little kids at the time, so I just started a toy store. And that was like a massive, massive learning experience for me. And I did that for a few years and did it while I was still working as a lawyer, and ended up selling that business. But that really opened the doors for me into, this whole world of business and business people. And I just love all of that. And so I got to a point then of trying to work out, well, how can I combine law with working with business people? And this is where I ended up. I went and did some further study so I could specialize in trademarks, and so I ended up here. And when you mix with a lot of business people, there are all those questions all the time about trademarks, and do I need one, and when do I need one, and how do I do it, and all that kind of stuff. And so I knew that there was a need for this kind of service, and I really wanted to be able to deliver it in a different way than, your big law firms that are scary and intimidating, and people, don't want to make that call to them because they're so scared of how much it's going to cost them just to get on the phone to them. So, I wanted to be able to work with small businesses and deliver that service and give them that peace of mind.
And that you do, and you do it very, very well. So now, but like you said, that scary part, right? Like, I know, like when I was calling you, I was like, I didn't budget for like $5,000 for a trademark, and I was like, how do I, like, do I stop the launch because I don't have this trademark? And what happened if people do copy it? And what am I going to do? And there was a bit of fear going, like, I know I got to do it, but what is she going to say? And then you got on the phone. I was like, okay. For my instance, it wasn't $5,000. So I don't want you to stop listening now going, all trademarks are $5,000, because that's not true. All right. But, it's kind of like that fear of the unknown. What does this mean for me? What does it mean for the business? What does it mean for my family? What does it mean for my finances? Like, what does it even mean? So I guess let's really start off with kind of laying the foundation for this particular episode, and what is about trademarks is, what is a trademark? Let's just start at the very most simplest form.
Cool. So before we jump into that, I might just mention that I am in Australia and an Australian trademark attorney. So we're going to talk really high level today. So most of what I say is still going to be relevant to your overseas listeners, because there's a lot of similarities in laws overseas. But, sometimes I'll probably dip into some Aussie stuff when we get into the details. So I just wanted to
You know, 100%. Absolutely. The majority of our listeners are Aussie, but I'd say, again, I'd have to go look at the stats. Something, again, I don't really look at a lot of the stats. I just know there's listeners. Yeah, but the majority, I definitely know the majority are Aussies. Like I said, at least 60% are Aussie, but still 40%, I'd say, if I had to take a guess, are international. So,
yeah. So I think they'll still get some value out of this because it'll be sort of overarching ideas and, it might give them a place to start when they're going and looking into trademarks in their own country.
Absolutely. And this is really about educating, right? It's like you might not need a trademark right now, but I want to plant the seed that there's may come a day when you do need it, and that we've let you know that, like, what are the benefits of a trademark, what we're going to talk about, what are some of the potential costs, how would you apply, and all that. So, like all of this information, though, like Lisa's saying, is going to be predominantly, because she's an Australian attorney. But at the end of the day, this wouldn't be hard for you to take what we're telling you and apply it to your own country or find someone in your own country.
So traditionally, trademarking was something that only big businesses would think about, and you would go off to your big law firm and with your big business and pay a lot of money to get your trademark. And I think there's a lot of people who still think that that's the case, and that if they're a small business, they don't have to worry about it. But these days, things have changed because we're all online, and we all have our social media presence and websites and all that kind of stuff. It's becoming more of a relevant thing for smaller businesses as well. So historically, it wouldn't matter if you had a business in Brisbane and then another business with the same name in Sydney and another one with the same name in Melbourne, and it really wouldn't have mattered because no one's going to get them confused. But now people really can get them confused because they'll end up on the wrong website or on the wrong Facebook page. So it is something that's more relevant to most business owners these days. So when we look at what is a trademark, trademarks are really about protecting your brand. So the legal, definition is it's a trademark is a sign that's used to distinguish your goods and services from the goods and services that are provided by another person. So it's something that identifies your goods and services as being yours, and it's something that your customers can use to distinguish you from your competitors. So in layman terms, it's your brand, basically. It's the things that you do to your business to help you stand out from your competitors and to make you different from your competitors. So it can be things like your business name, your logo, your tagline, service names, product names, packaging, anything that serves a branding purpose in your business is something that can potentially be trademarked. So what it's not is you don't trademark a product, and I do have a lot of people come to me saying that they want to trademark their product. Mm-hmm. You can't trademark a product or a process or an e-course or anything like that. You really have to come back to that brand. That's really what trademarks are all about.
And with, I guess, one good question, because we just differentiated again that there are some different rules here in Australia than internationally. Mm-hmm. With trademarks too, do you need to have a trademark? Do you need to apply for a trademark in each country, or is the trademark universal?
It is a country by country thing. So because countries have their own laws on these things, that's how come the laws can be slightly different from country to country. And it's pretty much impossible for there to be like any kind of international law that's just going to apply everywhere. It does complicate things a bit. And when it comes to businesses working out where they need to get their trademark, then I usually suggest looking at where most of their income is coming from. Mm-hmm. If most of their customers are from the US, then that's where you want to be protected, because if it, worst case scenario happens and you can't use your brand in the US anymore, then that's going to have a massive effect on your business if that's where most of your customers are coming from.
Totally.
Yeah.
And what do you think are the key benefits of a business having a trademark?
Well, it really is about giving legal protection to your brand. So in Australia, we have the business name, register, where we all have to go and register our business name, and other countries might have something similar to that, or even state registers for that sort of thing. A lot of people think that that gives them some legal rights to the name, and it actually doesn't. So registering your business name doesn't mean that you own the name. It doesn't mean that you can stop someone else from using the name. It doesn't even mean that you're allowed to use the name yourself. You could register a business name and still find yourself being sued for infringing somebody's trademark. So the trademark, the benefits of it are to give you that legal protection. And basically what it gives you is the exclusive right to use your trademark, say it's your business name, as a brand for the goods and services that are specified on your registration. So that means that the same thing can be trademarked more than once if the trademarks relate to different kinds of products and services. So other advantages of doing a trademark is that it means that you can authorize other people to use your trademark. So you might license out the name of your, say you've got an e-course or something, you might license that out and let other people deliver it under your brand. A trademark is personal property. It's an actual asset that can be bought or sold. And so when you're looking at the assets that your business owns, then a registered trademark will be listed as an asset and it will have a value, and it's something that's quite important if you're ever selling your business. It really puts you in a stronger position if you do need to stop somebody else from using the same name as you, because the trademark register is public and everyone can see that something is registered as a trademark. That really just makes it clearer for you to say, look, I have the trademark, therefore these are my rights. It's having that clarity around it is much easier than you having to argue that that it's your name and that you have any rights to it altogether. So it makes things much easier, and it can also prevent a lot of issues from coming up as well, because if a business, particularly big businesses, if they're going to choose a new name, a new brand, they will check the trademark register before they settle on the name and make sure it's not registered. And if it is, then they'll go off and choose something else. Whereas if it's not on there, they'll go, okay, well, we're good to go. So,
which is interesting though, because I think this is super important for small businesses too, right? And that big businesses may have the teams and support around them to know, or legal teams even, that this is what you need to do, right? Or we're going to be having another branch. But I was just working with one of my coaching clients last night, and she wants to have I won't disclose what, but she wants to have this umbrella onto her current business. And there's a name, and I was like, you need to check that out. And she's like, well, why do you need to check? It's just, I'm just adding it under here. I'm like, no, you don't understand. It's like, you need to double check that what word and terms you're about to start utilizing, do you know what I mean, aren't trademarked. And we can kind of giggle, you and I, because you and I had an encounter. Well, not you. I had an encounter this week, to which I then called you in a freaking state of panic on Monday, because this is a prime example of this happening. Is that I won't disclose the man because he's a beautiful man. I give this man an enormous amount of credit. All right, but I was running a Facebook ad for a particular lead magnet. And on my ad, it had 2 words side by side. Now, these 2 words to me are just universal words, a set of words that are used regularly that I see in different countries all the time. But because I, again, was naive, didn't even think that this set of words would be trademarked, I got a, video message the other day on my Facebook page, which again was really lovely that this gentleman did that. Again, my hat, I cannot praise him enough for the way he handled the situation. And hey, this is such and such. And by the way, I've got a screenshot of your current Facebook ad that you're running. And by the way, you're infringing on my 2 words, right?
Yeah.
Again, I didn't know. Again, it was a harmless problem. But what I will be saying is, and that's why, again, it's so important. I mean, you were already booked to come on anyways, but it's really important this episode for me because it's not just about protecting your property, that you, in the assets that you currently have, but anything that you might want to start doing. And then you potentially, you could get taken down, right? So in this instance, mine was kind of a slap on the hand, really, from the point of view, like, now I'm going to be really mindful. This is a lesson I've learned from that. But luckily, I hadn't started a whole new business based on those two words.
Yes.
Because I would have been completely shut down. And that's what I was saying to my client last night when we were talking about this new idea is before you do anything else, go to the registrar, like where you can check everything out and just double check that this isn't. And then I talked to her about the importance of trademarking, all this. Now, again, whether or not what she does with that information is up to her. But I believe that now that I have all that information, it's my responsibility as a coach to educate her, and then she can choose what she does with that information. So this is a prime example of, you do have to look for these things regardless of your big business and the small business.
Absolutely. And most issues that come up are innocent, accidental, they're not, people are really worried about people copying them. And yes, that does happen. But most issues that come up are just, much more innocent kind of situations where it's like, oh, whoopsie, I didn't check that, or I didn't realize, or, so you need to check just in case. And, for my clients, while they get all these legal rights from getting a trademark, most of them really decide to go through the process because they just want to have the confidence that they're actually allowed to use the name or whatever it is. They're going to be safe if they use it. They're not going to get in trouble from anybody else. And they've got that peace of mind then that they won't be forced to change their name if an issue arises. So, they're not sort of going, oh, I want to do this because I want all these legal rights. They're mostly saying, I just want to do it for that peace of mind to know that I've got the name, it's mine, I'm allowed to use it, and I can go forward and invest money in packaging and branding and all this kind of stuff, knowing that money is not going to be wasted because I've got the trademark locked in.
And I guess if we talk about that, you would have seen in the years, and I guess we just were briefly talking about it, but I can only assume that there's an enormous amount of costs that businesses can incur if they don't have a trademark.
Yeah. So, the costs that come up are really, what's going to happen if the worst case scenario happens, which if you hang around on Facebook at all, you will see, people with their freaking out about, I was on the receiving end of a cease and desist letter and now I have to change all my branding and all that kind of stuff. So, the worst case scenarios do happen. And so if that happens, I guess there's two main things that can happen is that you're going to have to change your name or your logo, or that you feel like you're in the right and you now need to defend yourself and take action so that you don't have to change everything. So if you choose to change everything, then that could mean a new name and new branding and new website and domains and socials and new packaging, signage, all sorts of stuff. And so depending on your business, the cost of having to make that change, for you this week, the cost of having to make that change is probably not too bad.
It will be more a time thing. It's more,
yeah.
And again, like I said, I take full responsibility. There's no blame here. The full responsibility is on me, but you'll now be going back to the design team to, change the words, right?
So it's quite annoying and
it's more of like an inconvenience, but I guess if it was my trademark that where people were infringing on, like I totally understand where this guy's coming from, right? Like he's just protecting his assets. So this guy is in the full, he's done exactly everything right. And like I said, I've got a lot of gratitude for the fact that, again, the way he handled it, like a beautiful man. But again, it could have been, it could have been very different, right?
Yeah. And I've had a client who's been on the receiving end of a cease and desist letter from a big company. And she was a product business. So she had a whole heap of products in their packaging and was given 14 days to stop using the name. And for her, that means having all this stock that she can't sell. So, of course, there's all the other stuff of she had to take her website down, take her YouTube channel down, like all that kind of stuff is devastating and she needs to start again, basically. But all this stock as well, like it's such a waste.
And so, again, and that's where I guess if we look at the how do I say, the time, the effort, the emotional energy, I just think it should be one of those things that you almost add to the beginning of your checklist when you're starting a business, right? Like if you're already going to pay for a logo, you're already going to pay for a website, you're already going to do all those things. I just don't see, I mean, I'm not sure there are cases that you would talk about, but to me, it's just such an important part. And again, it's one of those things that I didn't know what I didn't know. But you can be damn sure that any coaching client that I'm working with from now on, it's a part of our ongoing conversation, right? It has been for a while now. So what are the legal requirements for those people out there that are going, you're bringing up some really great points here, Lisa. There's probably a few things that I need to look into. What are those legal requirements look like for getting a trademark?
So one of the misconceptions with trademarks is that people think that it's just an administrative process. You just log in and fill in the details, and really that's because on the IP Australia system at least, it's super easy to log in and fill in the details, and bang, 5 minutes later you've lodged your trademark application. So a lot of people don't realise that there's a lot more that happens after you lodge your application. That's not it once it's lodged. And about 30% of all applications in Australia don't go through. So that's a big chunk of them. And then more of that there'll be a higher percentage that run into issues. And some people will be able to overcome their issues and get them through. And then what's left is 30% that still don't go through at all. And so that's because their applications are not meeting those legal requirements for being registered. So there's a few different ones. One that comes up a lot is that the trademark must be capable of distinguishing your products and services from others, from your competitors. Mm-hmm. So this one means that you can't trademark those generic, common phrases that describe what it is that you're selling. Mm-hmm. So a really obvious one is that you wouldn't be able to trademark Sydney Plumber, because all the other plumbers in Sydney need to be able to say that they're a Sydney plumber, and it just wouldn't be fair for one person to have the exclusive rights to that phrase. And then that's a really obvious one, but there's this massive grey area of whether something is too generic or not, or is it too descriptive or not. And so that one can be one that can really catch people out, and they'll lodge their application and then find out months later that it's not capable of distinguishing is the test. So they kind of fall down at that point. The other one that comes up quite a lot is that your trademark can't be either substantially identical or deceptively similar to another mark that's already on the trademark register. So that means, you need to do a search before you lodge your trademark application and see what is already on there. And a lot of people get caught out here because they just search for the exact thing that they're wanting to trademark, and if it comes up that there's no results, they go, I'm good to go. Yep. But because you need to look at anything that might be substantially identical or deceptively similar, it's a bigger operation to do the search, and you'll search for different spellings and part words and all sorts of things to just make sure there's nothing on there that's going to pop up and cause you an issue during your application process.
And also, those are a lot of what you're talking about, the legal requirements, but I even know like you said, it's quite easy. You go online, you click a few buttons, wham, bam, and you're done. But there's actually some more complexities. Like when you were sitting with me on our call, and I think, or maybe it was a questionnaire, it was one of the two, or it could have been a combination, where you're all the different categories that you could also have. And I think there I was okay, this is a shitstorm. Lisa, just tell me what I need to do, right? If I would have had to try and figure that out myself, it would have been a sure error. No, I would have potentially even had too many, included things I wouldn't that was where I was so glad that I had you, because I was you knew the ins and outs of each category, how that applied to my business, what I needed to do. So again, you could easily screw your application up with just those categories I was so confused about.
Yeah. So, at the end of the day, your trademark is giving you the legal rights to use the name in relation to whatever products and services are listed on your trademark. So that means that list of your trademark of all your products and services, that list really defines the legal, the scope of your protection. So it is like super, super important. Where it gets confusing for people is that all the different products and services in the world have been categorized down into 45 different categories called classes. And so when you're choosing your products and services, it'll ask you what classes, they're in, and the cost of your trademark will be linked to how many classes you've got in there. So that is a bit of a process to work all that stuff out. But it also confuses people too, because they then think that these classes is actually important to their legal protection.
Yeah.
So I've seen a lot of people say that, I've got a trademark in class 30, and so they think that they're covered for all of class 30.
Yeah.
And that's not how it works. It really does come down to the specific descriptions of your products and services and getting that right. And, that's where people do fall down when they spend 5 minutes doing their trademark application, because they just log in and go bang, bang, bang. And they think it's all, they sort of don't realize how important that step is. And, that's where someone like me puts a whole lot of thought into that, because you got your trademark, they'd last for 10 years. So you don't want to be coming back in another year to kind of fill in the gaps of things that you missed. You want to try and make sure it's drafted nice and widely, so it's actually going to protect you
as you
for
grow.
as long as possible. That's right. Yeah.
And so with those being some of the legal requirements and then some of those like specific categories, how do businesses, if they wanted to apply for a trademark, like what does that look like? How do they do that?
So the first thing you need to do is decide what you're actually going to apply for. So most businesses have more than one trademark because it's about your brand. You've got different aspects to your brand. You've got your name and your logo and product names, and the first decision is like, well, what is the most important thing that we need to actually protect, and or have a strategy. If you've got multiple things, then work out, well, what's the most important one that we'll do first, and then what will we do next. And again, people think that if they lodge a trademark application for their logo, then that means that they've protected their name. And I guess there's a bit of a lack of understanding about how the different kinds of trademarks protect you differently. So making that decision of what needs to be protected is the first step. Then you need to do that search and make sure that there's nothing on the register that's going to stop your application from going through. You have to have a think about whether any of those legal tests, and there are others that I didn't mention that aren't, that don't come up very often, but you need to, have a bit of a think about those and see whether your application's actually going to satisfy those tests, because there's no point lodging it if it's got no chance of going through.
Yes.
You need to work out who the owner of the trademark will be, and this is something that people usually give zero thought to, but it can be the death of your trademark. When you go to enforce your trademark 5 years down the road, if you haven't got who the owner of the trademark is right at the start, then you won't be able to enforce your trademark down the road. So you've got to get that right. And then determine those products and services that you want to be covered for, working out the classes and all that kind of stuff. And then you can work out the costs and make a decision then about, how much you want to get protected. Because for most of my clients, it is going to be a financial decision as well of, making sure that we get as much of them covered as we can, but it's also within their budget. So
yep. And what would you say for those people out there, because a lot of my listeners will be very budget conscious, as I was when I started this.
Yep.
What's like the minimum type of cost for a trademark versus like what's a ballpark? Like, and again, how long is a piece of string really is the question more like it. But, I think mine was under $2,000 with you. Do you know what I mean? So they all range, but to me, and I know $2,000 may sound like a lot to people, but to have that, so I can lay my head on my pillow at night, And like the other thing is because of the way the trademark works, like it goes through stages, correct? Like you've got to apply for it. Do you want to talk to them about what the stages of a trademark look like?
Yeah, so you lodge your application and pay fees at the start, and then your application gets examined, and this is where it's different to a lot of other administrative type things. Like, you apply for your business name and it's just all done by the computer. Trademarks is different. You have an actual person, a trademark examiner will sit down and look at your application and work out whether it meets all the requirements for registration. If they accept your application, that means they say yes, it's ticked all the boxes, and then it gets published in the Trademark Journal. If they say no, there's issues, then they'll send a letter and set out what those issues are, and then you have an opportunity to work out a way around those issues. Mm-hmm. So this part of the process can take anywhere between 1 month and 6 months for that bit to happen. Once your trademark is published, then there's a 2-month period where other businesses can come and oppose your application. And that doesn't happen very often, but it can happen if there's already somebody out there using the name and they've been using it for a while, but they don't have a trademark, then they might come in at that point and oppose your trademark application. And then, assuming everything goes through fine there and nobody opposes it, then you get to registration, and your registration is backdated to the date that your application was first lodged. And you've got that registration for 10 years, but you can renew it every 10 years forever, if you like.
Yep.
So.
But like, I know, like when we were doing it, I just remember that there was like, was it 3 payments that I made you? Like you had a payment plan, right?
So that's just my my way of doing it. And so with the fees, there's the government fees, and we have to pay those fees right at the start.
Yep.
And then there's the professional fees if you use someone like me. So the government fees are on a per class basis. Mm-hmm. So they start at $250, or you could pay $330 depending on what kind of application you lodged. So that's per class. To do one through me, it starts at around the $1,000 mark for one class, and that includes all the government fees, and then can really go up, for as much as you want. But yeah, I've got a payment plan which allows my clients to spread out my fees part of it.
Yeah, totally. But that to me though was super helpful in my position, right? Like I'm paying for copywriters and sales pages and logos and graphics, and I was like, oh my gosh, I know I need to do this, but it's another fee, right? And so when I came to you, I was actually expecting to have to pay that up front. So I was like, okay, you'll find the money, right? Like I guess I'm always come from the space of I will find the money if it's genuinely what's going to help my business short and long term, right? I'll figure it out. But then you came, you're like, yep, no worries, we can do this. And by the way, I have a payment plan. I was like, oh my gosh, this is ingenious, right? Like a lawyer's got a freaking payment plan. And I guess that's what I liked about you, is that your willingness to really work with smaller businesses, right? Because the bigger law firms would just be like, Johnny, Susie, Angela, you're going to need to get us paid up, right? So, So just as a side note, I do say that again, if you are sitting on the bench, on the fence about getting a trademark and you don't know what to do, just know that again, someone like Lisa is trying to help you do this the right way, the correct way, while at the same time helping with cash flow, which you don't see very often. Now, I guess this goes into one of my last questions for you is, why should businesses pay for a lawyer to do the paperwork the first time around? I mean, I'll speak to that in a minute, but I'd love to hear what your thoughts are.
Well, and I think this is a great question, because when you do hang around in Facebook groups and things like that, you'll see a lot of people popping in there saying, it's super easy, just do it yourself. So, that's what a lot of business people will hear that from other business owners, that it's super easy and you don't need to have a professional to help you through it. But I think that there's 2 things to really consider. There's the application process, and then there's the process of ensuring that your trademark is actually going to provide you with the best legal protection that you can have. Mm-hmm. So the application process bit is super simple. Like it really, people do spend 5 minutes logging in and lodging their application, and off they go. And if if by chance their application meets all the legal requirements, because most of them don't know what they are when they lodge it, it's just pure chance their application goes through, then they will tell the world that it was super easy to get their trademark. What they don't realise is that a lot of these people have trademarks that are terrible. That
would actually not cover them, probably.
Exactly.
If shit went down.
All the time I see that. All the time. So when you work with somebody like me, we're thinking beyond just the application process. We're thinking about your business over the long term and how we're going to protect that. It's more than just, is this application going to go through or not? Is it actually going to protect you at the end of the day anyway? And if not, what are the limitations to it? And making sure that our clients understand what they are protected for and what they're not protected for. And it's a bit more of a partnership than, and you talk about strategy and, making sure that if you've got a plan for, we might do this one now and then we might do that one later, and it's a different kind of relationship, I suppose. Whereas if you just decide that you want to do it yourself and you ring up the trademark office in whatever country you're in, you're going to basically get some advice on the process, the application process, but they can't advise you on how to make sure that your application is drafted correctly. They can't advise you on what you should trademark. They don't really care whether your trademark protects you at the end of the day, because their role is just for that application process. They don't have any role after that. So,
and also, like, they can't sit there. They're not a business advisor either, from the point, like, they don't have time to sit there and get into the nitty gritties. Oh, so you're going to sell merchandise. Oh, you're going to sell a course. Oh, you're going to want to do both. Yeah. Oh, okay. Like, and so again, it's, I don't know, I guess, and that's where I guess I'll answer is, why should businesses pay for a lawyer? Is just, if you're going to pay for everything else, why the hell wouldn't you pay for a lawyer, is what my question is. Is that, like, again, and I guess it's also about not just what happens there. Like, I was able to call you up on Monday, right? Like, I had a relationship with you and I was like, Lisa, this beautiful man is called. He said, I'm infringing on 2 words. I thought they were universal words. Like, and I said to you right off the bat, charge me for whatever it is, but I just need some advice from you about, like, what the hell's going, like, what do I do? But because I knew that you were the trademark, like, a lawyer, I already had that relationship. You helped me in 5 minutes. I was like, yep, too easy. I got my answer and it was done. Whereas if you ever fall into that plan and you're doing it on your own and shit goes down and you haven't paid a lawyer, like, if I wouldn't have known you per se and I called up a legal team, I could have just been hit with a $1,000, $2,000 quick bill, right? Like, I could, because there was no relationship there. So
that's right. Or you would have posted in a Facebook group and got 20 different answers to your question.
None of them would have been correct unless they were a lawyer, right? Like, exactly. And so I guess what I'm saying is like, just find the money, all right? And I know you're probably like, Ange, that's easy for you. It hasn't always been easy for me, all right? But I made collective choices and decisions looking at my business from a long-term strategy, not a survival mode strategy. So I just kind of go, like, if you're willing to start a business, kind of like people that go traveling and don't take out travel insurance. And I'm kind of like, okay, but you just dropped $10,000 on this, but you're not going to, like, pay the extra $200 or $300 maybe to ensure that your family can get medical. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. It really doesn't. So again, I could go on about it, and I'm not here praise. It's not called the podcast praise, Lisa, but, like, all I'm saying is like, really consider, or, I know you offer, like, a quick chat to people who are considering this, like, begin to speak with Lisa minimally, and then make a decision as to what, how you can afford it, because it is super, super important for the overall sustainability and profitability long-term of your business.
And I think it's just, don't be scared to reach out to someone initially and get some advice early on, even if you know that you can't afford to do it right now. When you speak to somebody and understand a bit more about it and how it applies to your business and what it's likely to cost you, and then you can actually make an informed decision about when the right time is for you, and you can start planning for it. You start to put it in your budget. And I do speak to people and they say, well, I can come back to you in July after I've done my tax, or, but at least you know where you stand and you can plan for it then.
Yep. 100%. So now one final question that I've started to ask my guests to wrap it up, before we wrap up, I should say, is what do you know now that you wish you knew when you first started in business collectively?
Oh my goodness. I wish I knew how important relationships are, really, with other business owners. I'm a bit of an introvert, and I work at home and I work, by myself, and I really just thought that's what business was all going to be about. I'd just be doing my own thing. But now I know that that's not what business is about at all. It really is all about relationships. And, it's amazing how much other people can help you, whether you work with them or whether you become friends with them, or, in so many different ways. So that's what I wish I knew right from the start, is how important that is. And I would have put in a lot more effort initially to build relationships rather than, hide myself off in a little hole doing my own thing.
You speak my language. I mean, I'm all about human to human marketing, and that human connection, and people freak out when I pick up the phone and call them or ask them to dinner. It's almost like, oh my gosh, I've actually got to get behind from the computer, right? Like my accountant, Roger, who was on a couple episodes before, was like, Angie, I haven't met you yet face to face. I'm like, I know, like, but during the day it's quite tricky. I was like, well, let's have dinner instead, so I think it is relationships, I genuinely believe, are key to how fast your business will or will not grow. I think it's super, super imperative. Now, for those listeners, again, we've probably kind of mind blown a few people here, Lise, or just got the penny rolling or penny dropping, whatever you want to look at it. For those listeners wanting to know more about you or connect with you to explore getting their own business trademarked here in Australia, where can they find you?
So my website is wintrademarks.com.au, and I'm on Facebook at Win Trademarks. I am hopeless at Instagram, so I'm not even really on there, so don't go looking for me there. It's on my list of things to get onto at some point. And on my website, though, I do have a couple of things that might be useful to people. There is a checklist on there where you can, basically it's all the things you need to consider if you're deciding if you need to get a trademark or not. Mm-hmm. And so, it's more than just the cost. It'll raise a few things to have a bit of a think about. And also on my website, you can book that chat with me. So it's just a free short chat where we can just go over your business and have a little chat about what you're thinking you might want to protect. And I can give you some info about, where you stand, and you can go away with a bit more info and make some. I
think it's all about educating yourself. It's like the more and more like, what does this mean? How does this apply? What do you know? No, totally agree. Yeah. So if you are needing anything with trademarks, please, make sure, again, do your due diligence. And if you are in Australia, feel free to head to Lisa's website. We will have all the links in the show notes, which I guess goes to my, kind of closing thing is my team and I will be putting together this entire podcast and the transcription for this episode at angelahenderson.com.au. And of course, I cover all sorts of related business and life topics inside my very active Facebook community. Lisa's in there also, the Australian Business Collaborative. So head on over and join there. But for the rest of you, have an awesome day, no matter where you are in the world. And I look forward to you joining me next week for another amazing episode of the Business and Life Conversations podcast. Thanks so much, Lisa, for your time today and educating all of the listeners. It has been fabulous, and I hope you have a good day too, Lisa.
Thanks, Angela. It's been great fun.
No worries. Thank you. Thanks for listening to the Business and Life Conversations podcast with Angela Henderson. www.angelahenderson.com.au